Belizean. Tell them that we bonded. You're bonded, you're bonded. Tell them that we bonded. You're bonded, you're bonded. I am a true Belizean. Tell them that we bonded. Belize my home, my native land. Tell them that we bonded. I want you people to understand. Tell them that we bonded. I am proud to be a Belizean. Tell them that we bonded. You're bonded, you're bonded. Tell them that we bonded.
Live out of Florida, ARIA LIGHTFOOT. And this is Naval String Connection, the Belizean show in the Belizean diaspora. I'm Bilal Morris, again live from my studio in Los Angeles, and ARIA LIGHTFOOT live out of Florida. We have a very entertaining, informative, and culturally powerful show for us today with our sister, the daughter of Cedar Fridoroff, Sister Elugia Penny Gordon, and we want to welcome our sister to the studios, to the show Naval String Connection, and she definitely in representation of the African diaspora, diaspora Central American organization out of Central America. This is not Cabo. This is not the Central American Black organization. This is another very constructive Central American African organization out of Central America, but mostly the Central American Black diaspora, as we would want to call it, And we want to again invite our sister and welcome her to Naval String Connection. For those Belizeans in the Belizean diaspora who are tuning in and who have been one of our staunch guests, viewers and listeners, that is, we want to invite you to tell one across the United States, across the United Kingdom, Central America, where this voice will come forth to you, those Belizeans who live in the Central American region, mostly in the Pan-African, or I would call it Pan-Garifuna, the Pan-Garifuna, or the Pan-Black Central American communities in the coastal regions of Central America. This is especially for you today. We are joined by a very special guest, and I would have my sister ARIA LIGHTFOOT introduce her sister to us and take us on here. ARIA.
Well, good night. Thank you for joining us tonight on Naval String Connections. It's been 2 weeks. I've been in Belize for a couple days. I just got scolded by Harlan for not visiting. But Belize takes up a lot of your time.
I
know. But we have a great guest tonight because we have Princess that's coming out of California. She's a Belizean American and she's very much involved in advocacy work. And also, she is an artist also, and she's going to tell us a little bit about her art, which is photography. And she's also involved in being a publicist. And she's doing some work, as Bilal says, within the African diaspora community in Central America. And she also works with domestic violence victims, I believe, right? So, Princess, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We're very honored to have you here. And could you just tell us a little bit? We always start with your naval string. So you need to first tell us about your connection to Belize.
So it's interesting that it's called navel string, and my connection to Belize is my mother, and so I'm first generation American born, and she is from Punta Gorda, Belize. So from the time I was probably a year old, I was traveling back and forth from California to Belize on a regular basis. And so I'm very, very grateful for that.
And could you tell us a little bit about your perception? You know, you're growing up in America, you're born here. What's your perception about going back and forth in Belize?
There's a huge cultural difference. There's a culture shock that you experience going between, I would say, the two worlds. Um, it's definitely not the same feeling. What I can say is something that I didn't understand when I was a child that I understand now is that it was very important for me to be able um, to have that experience at such an early age because I became a defender of Belize and those who live outside of the United States. Um, Going to Belize, um,
Harlan, you're
oh,
coming through.
sorry about that. Experiencing being in a in a place like Belize where I had the freedoms of, you know, back then I was able to walk the streets with no shoes on, you know, feeling the earth under my feet, um, you know, experiencing um, fresh fruit off the trees and being able to be so close to the ocean like every single day. Um, you know, being around the wisdom and guidance of elders, you know, and it's a slower pace, which allows you to take in more of those experiences and entities. And so being in the United States, everything is so much more fast paced. Um, it's more, things are more separated, people are more separated, so you don't have that closeness. And so it's harder to build the connections and the relationships. And like I said, it's not a place where I can walk with no shoes on, and so I'm not even really connecting, you know, connecting with the earth or connecting with nature the same way that I would be able to connect, you know, in Belize. So I guess I will. So what I did want to say is a huge part of what I learned about myself, having those experiences. It allowed me to be less judgmental, because, you know, for me it's like I became defensive over um individuals who live, like I said, outside of the US because they're living in a completely different reality than those who are living in the US. And and I find that it's really important to bridge um the gap in understanding how both can be special in its own way. And
Do you feel, for example, as somebody who is from a indigenous community in Belize, and also with an American experience, you know, I think when people see race in America, everything is seen in black, white, yellow, brown. I think that is the spectrum of America when it comes to race. But Belize is very dynamic because we're very cultural, indigenous. Many people don't realize they're black indigenous people.
mhm,
That's a whole different concept, you know, than what you're taught in the United States system. And then you have a complete unique language. Um, you know, and you are from a different culture that you experience going back and forth between the US and Belize. Do you think that had some impact on your advocacy today, or how you see differences or advocacy in your work, even in your photography? Do you think that plays a role in how you operate today?
Um, I believe so. I believe so. Um, for me, I just want to say that it just broadened my mind and my heart. So that's probably the best way that I can sum that up.
So tell us a little bit about the work that you do. Tell us a little bit first about your photography. I understand that you have done photography for some Grammy Award winning artists and other people. Tell us about the lens. Like, what are you looking for? What are you producing when you're doing your photography?
So to make a long story short, photography was an escape for me. It was therapy from some of my adversities as a child and growing up. You know, being a teenager, just needing an outlet somewhere where I can feel accepted and celebrated. I kind of gave that to myself by way of photography, even though I didn't know it at the time. And one of the things that I realized very early on is that I have the ability to capture the essence of the individual, and and so I would always hear, "Oh, I've worked with so many other photographers, but no one has ever been able to capture me like this," um, and um, and my work has intimidated other photographers because of that as well. Um, so it's really about the essence and connection. It's how I was able to connect with people, and based on that connection, I was able to capture their true essence. I when I was I want to go into why I feel that my ancestors put me on the path for to do photography, and it has to do with um the work that I'm doing now, like advocacy work um and connecting with survivors and things like that. Just having that open heart, that open mind, not being afraid to be able to connect with individuals, and it allowed me to walk into spaces where, like for example, when I was 19 years old, I was given the opportunity to work with Michael Jackson's family. And I wanted to know so badly, what is it about me? Why me? How did I even get the opportunity to be welcomed into their family's home? And this was right before he passed. So I started to think like, what is this? You know? And then I got another opportunity to work with Lazy Bone of Bone Thugs and Harmony, which he was also on tour with the group. So when the group went on tour, I was able to be on that tour as well. And but I noticed that I would be amongst the families, right? And so I'm like, these people, they don't just let you they just wouldn't put anybody amongst their family, you know, or their family. So I started to question that about myself as well. And it comes down to me treating them as people. I never looked at them as celebrities or you know, higher than or bigger than you know, the average person. I would talk to them just like how I'm talking to you right now. And I wouldn't really, they wouldn't get the energy from me that, oh, like I'm a fan or I'm looking at them as, you know, a star, a superstar or anything like that. So it was really comfortable. So I think I gave off that the energy of family as well. And so it made them comfortable with me.
You come from out of your parents was a very Afrocentric parent. Your father, Jamal Guri, a very good friend of mine from way back. And I remember you from you were a child. I mean, growing up, you and your brother. But Jamal Guri is the epitome of Afrocentrism. An African American brother who I worked with, and your mother was also groomed within that Afrocentric community, coming from the Afro-Belizean Garifuna community that live in the largest black immigrant community in Los Angeles, the Belizean community, which is the largest black immigrant community. But my work with Jamal Gori, I remember him driving up to Punta Gorda. He drive from LA. And I don't know if you used to go on those trips with your mom and your dad, but his work as a videographer, you know, standing documentary filmmaker, that's how I've known him, and someone, your path was paved for you in terms of coming up in respect for your ancestors, your African ancestors. Talk about the work that you're doing now, Sister Princess Eulogia, on at the Centro America Diaspora Africana organization. Talk about that, because you're merging into that after your body of work that you have compiled in photography and working with the NAACP and with African American celebrity musical artists, as you have said. Talk about what made you merge into become a part of the Pan Garifuna community of Central America and the Pan Afro Central American community.
Yeah, so with everything, we're wanting balance, right? So like you mentioned, my father, my parents, you know, I got a little bit from both of them to be able to be on this path of walking into I would say a territory that is unknown and untouched by so many. There are not too many people within the diaspora who are true hybrids, the way that I am. And so it allows me to have a yearning for the unseen, the unknown. Me being able to travel back and forth from California to Belize allowed me to miss one, you know, when I was present, you know, like if I was in California, I would miss Belize. If I was in Belize, I would miss, you know, California. And so it created this this entity of its own that allowed me to say, you know what, like now I want to be able to take both and to be able to merge it as one and to be able to do the work, because how do we bridge these gaps of understanding? How do we do it, you know? And so I was given the opportunity to become the regional coordinator for the Central American region for an election process that took place. And I mean, I could have taken on the challenge of being the regional coordinator for the United States. And I said, no, let me take on the challenge of doing it for Central America, because who else has the passion for creating the bridge other than myself? You know, I put that on myself to say I can do that, because I can create a puzzle. You know, I can create a picture out of so many different pieces. Even with all of the different language barriers, I was able to bring it together, and people were able to see how possible it was. And sometimes for people who are not travelers, who are not well-traveled, who don't have access to having some of those different experiences, there's like a one-track mind that tends to come from some of these individuals. And I'm not bashing anyone, but that's kind of what happens if you don't get out of your comfort zone, or your, you know, your neck of the woods. You're not able to really see what else there is to connect with. You know, you don't have the experience of actually connecting with something outside of that comfort. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, it's rarely you find children born of Belizean parents, your mother that is, but children born of African people from the African diaspora, as your father and your mother are. You really find a sense of consciousness in a lot of our, it's not to criticize, but you really find a deep sense of consciousness that I remember finding in both your parents. And to see you have morphed into that offspring, that human being that has sprung from these two people and have carried on the work to another level. It's a very amazing, and we are happy and we champion that kind of thing, being that we are in the African diaspora, and we want to sort of use a show like this to empower young people like yourself. And I mean, you are a mother, you are a parent, a wife, and you have not strayed away from that way of life. You respect your African ancestors, and you have even taken the step now of working deeply with this Central American Black organization. Talk about the things that you all do. What is the purpose and the objective of the organization, and what are some of the things that you have done so far in terms of bridging that gap between Black Central American people in the diaspora and their native land, in the terms of the Garifuna Yorme, St. Vincent, and in terms of the Creole in Central America, because it's also part of that Central American Black organization, and the Mosquito Indian and other people of color, indigenous people of that region. Talk about what your organization is trying to achieve in terms of this whole pan-Black Central American people, indigenous people.
Absolutely. So, like, for example, today we just had a virtual event, and that's connected to the 4th session for the Permanent Forum on People of African Descent at the United Nations. And so I'm actually a member of the youth subcommittee for the International Civil Society Working Group for the Permanent Forum on People of African Descent at the United Nations. And so that work pretty much allowed me to go to other organizations and to people within the different territories and different countries to be able to say, hey, let's work together in order for us to be able to put all of our ideas together to come together as one so that we can present ourselves as one entity, one body. And so, like, once again, back to, you know, what I was saying before, just constantly communicating with different individuals. There's so much outreach that happens. So, like, for example, I just came back from your roommate, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and so while I was there, I sat in on a conference. I'm constantly in meetings. I'm constantly, you know, on phone calls and sending emails in order to be able to bring these people together. There's a group that we have that has over 500 people in it. That's just in Central America. That's focusing on getting their voices heard in places like the UN or the African Union. And so, so like for this year, I know that you always need like a goal in order to be able to strive and give people something to work towards. So that's like, for example, like today we had the virtual event. We came together in order to make sure that those individuals who were present had the opportunity to be able to have their voices heard at the United Nations in connection to this permanent forum on people of African descent. This is a very historic year for the African Union. And so I have been privileged to be connected in a way of where I was asked to be the assistant for someone who's doing work in not only the Caribbean, but for also Central America and America. And so they were on the program today. And so we're going to be starting to do more outreach. And so you'll be hearing more about this soon. But it's really just constant communication and bringing people into, I would say, intimate spaces so that they can have the opportunity to be able to voice their concerns so that we can compile it and then deliver it to where it needs to go.
Is Belize part of this group that's for Central American? Because I do know Bilal mentioned it's Central American. There's another group that's functioning. Do you guys
Cabo.
collaborate? Cabo, do you guys collaborate on agendas? You know, or are the agendas aligned somehow? That's one question regarding your Belize participation as a country. My second question is the reality of the African people in countries like Belize and Latin America and the Caribbean is dire. That's how I see it. There's never been any serious policy to address colonialism. And so you find countries like Belize, certain parts of Latin America, the United States, and even parts of the Caribbean, you find when it comes to crime rates, poverty, access to financing and land, issues with socio-economic issues, even the opportunities that exist, it's disproportionately, regardless of the population. For example, in the United States and Belize specifically, it's disproportionately against Black populations. And the Caribbean right now is suing, they're actively suing these European countries for some level of repatriation. One of the criticisms that I've heard is that they're not including voices from different African groups, even in this lawsuit. So, for example, Belize has the Garifuna and Creole councils, but you don't really hear those groups addressing the issues of Black how blacks have been affected by colonialism and slavery. There seem to be more groups that are almost like social groups. They promote the culture in dance and music and the different stuff, but we are not really addressing the living conditions and the access to different things and the fact that you find a lot of conflict still in these communities. I know that's very long-winded and I'm just trying to set it up. So, what is the agenda of your group? Is your group going to work towards addressing some of these dire concerns that is affecting African communities, diaspora communities in this region due to colonialism and slavery? Are you guys aligned with other groups that are doing similar things? And is there an agenda to join on to these lawsuits that the Caribbean is taking these European? I mean, I don't know how big your agenda is or how specific it is. If you could just give us a clue.
Absolutely. So to answer your first question about Cabo, no. And the reason, so not yet is what I'll say. Not yet. Here and now, I can say if I can get in communication with someone, I'm more than happy to talk to whoever I need to come together to be able to have the conversation. And then to answer the second question, a little bit about me. I am someone who brings people together. That's a part of who I am. And so the information, it gets out there. And I don't know how far it goes until, like moments like this where I get invited to be able to come and speak, or like I'll do the virtual event, and then those who show up, those are the ones who I start with because they're there and I'm able to communicate with them. Honestly, I'm just one person. And so, I can use all of the help that I can get in order to be able to say, like, this is what I'm doing. And if anyone is interested in having a conversation with me or the individuals who I am connecting with on a regular basis, then that's how we can start the process of connecting and putting putting our pieces together in order to be able to, make something happen. But take into consideration, I mean, you wouldn't know this, but I am still just getting started. And so, I'm doing the best that I can with what I have. And once again, if anyone is interested in coming to the table to be able to hear what I have going on and who I'm connected with and working with, by all means, please reach out, connect with me. I have tons of people who are ready to work on this and to collaborate. And so the opportunities do exist. They're there. And I'll be honest with you, when I went to the UN, I think it was in 2023, if I'm not mistaken, the seat for Belize was empty.
Wow.
So I mean, so I'm being honest, because that was also for the Permanent Forum on People of African Descent, and so, like, not to say that there weren't Garifuna people there, not to say that my mom and I didn't show up, but when you show up in spaces like this and you find out that there are designated seats with the country literally on display, where each individual, where each representative is supposed to sit, and you see that that seat is empty, but the entire room is full, then that's where we're at right now.
So Belize,
Visit to
just clarity, Belize has a seat, has a representative, but they didn't show up. Or is it that Belize has not appointed a representative, or maybe we don't even know about it? I'm just trying to, you
And
know.
I don't want to speculate either.
Right.
I want to say when I showed up, I didn't see anyone in that seat. That's me just.
You saw Guyana, you saw Barbados, you saw.
I saw that there were many other seats filled. I mean, to be in a room where we're having discussions about people of African descent, but I'm sitting next to someone from Cuba, someone from Russia is behind me. We're talking about everyone else, but I don't see certain seats.
No representation.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
and that goes with the question that Aria had asked with colonialism, the impact. And so I didn't laugh because I laughed at it. I laughed because, in a very serious way, that as the questioner asked, the impact of colonialism on people in the African diaspora. And that question about how has colonialism impacted the African diaspora in Central America, which you were at that meeting representing that Central American representative. And here you are, a child from the African diaspora out of the United States, and you were able to present there. The impact of colonialism on Belize itself is a very, very, very serious one, because most Afro-Belizeans of both Garifuna and Creole descent do not have a great sense of African-centered consciousness about themselves. We run away from being called African. We run away from being called Black. And the question answers itself when you mention the absence of any Afro-Belizean organization that was supposed to fill that seat. It answered itself. It tells that this is a country that has had problems with their Africanness, with their Blackness. And we find that in the United States itself, a lot of, and that's why we celebrate you, of a child born in the African diaspora from both African diaspora parents. We celebrate you that you are able to reach out and attend meetings like that in the United Nations, in the Caribbean. And it for me, has been in this work for some 30 years, I am not surprised about my own country, because this is a work in progress. And you Belizeans, Afro-Belizeans from the diaspora, born of Belizean parents, it is a breath of fresh air to see this kind of participation. And Aria and I, we are very excited to see someone like you, my sister, Princess Eulogia. We are very excited to see that. And we hear a statement like that, and Aria and I, we are baffled. And we are not only baffled, but we are a little embarrassed that we who come from the African diaspora, and a show like this, that we try to reach out to Belizeans. When I say that Belizeans are the largest Black immigrant group in LA, that was told to me by Mayor Karen Bass when she was a congresswoman. And I went and I presented that to the Consul General. It's like, she don't know what she's talking about. We have a problem with our Blackness. We have a problem with our Blackness. But I just wanted to sort of comment on that and to ask you, what was your experience with being in St. Vincent and to be in the presence of that outstanding Prime Minister Ralph E. Gonzalez. And you shared on the thread with the Afro Central American Organization, you shared the video, and I was listening to him. I listened to his whole talk, right? I listened to his whole talk on the African diaspora in Central America, particularly the history of the Garifuna people and the history of the Garifuna. And it was very impressive, very, very impressive of a man who is a prime minister that we don't really have that in our own country, who was able to study so in detail the history of the Garifuna people from their coming with Chatoué and the genocide that was committed against them by the British colonialists. Talk about that experience that you had as representing your organization.
Absolutely. So I don't want to say representing my organization, because I feel like I'm representing the ancestors. I'm representing the Garifuna people. I'm representing the diaspora, and those of the motherland, Africa. When I answer the call to show up in a place like St. Vincent and the Grenadines, before I traveled there the first time in 2023, I was already having dreams about being there. So I know that I know that it was a call that I was answering by showing up. It's beautiful, to say the least. It's beautiful, and it is heartbreaking all at once, because when you realize what has truly been done to our people, it's almost like you're left wondering about the amount of work that it's going to take to repair the damage that has been done. And so one thing that I realized about the Honorable Prime Minister Ralph Gonsalves is that he has a depth to him that many might not understand. And what you see from him on the outside is probably not what he has truly been called to be. And so I had the opportunity of having a conversation with him where he talked about not owning a pair of shoes until he was about, I want to say 12 years old. And that really, really stuck with me because of how vulnerable he was able to be in that moment. And he shared, you know, his connection to the Garifuna, one of the Garifuna territories. And what came to mind, what really filled my spirit, was he's not who we think he is. Because a lot of people are saying, oh, he's Portuguese. But my thing is, like, I'm thinking to myself, no, based on how he's been with us, with the Garina group traveling into St. Vincent these past few years, I'm like, there has to be something to him that hasn't been revealed yet. And that's something that I think needs to be questioned and explored, because he almost feels like us in a way. it's almost like dealing with someone who is trying to unlock their identity, their true identity. There's who who I feel like he knows he is, but it just hasn't been revealed yet.
With that said, we actually have to take a break. So we're going to go to break, and then we'll just talk a little bit more about the African diaspora, Belize relationship to it, and also a little bit about domestic violence, what type of work you're doing in that field. So we'll be right back.
Thank you.
You know, he is the Prime Minister of
Mandala Easter notice. Our advertisers, sellers, and readers are advised that there will only be one issue of the newspaper for Easter week. The paper will hit the streets on Wednesday morning, April 16, 2025. After the Easter holidays, there will only be the Friday issue of the Mandala, which will hit the streets Friday, April 25, 2025. Have a happy and safe Easter from the management and staff of Cremandala.
Just to make it quick, home attend to the sick. Cause there must be something she can do. This heart is broken in two. Tell her it's a case of emergency. There's a patient by the name of Gregory. Night nurse, only you alone can quench this thirst. My night nurse, oh gosh, oh the pain is getting worse. Wanna see no doubt. I need attendance from my nurse around the clock. Cause there's no prescription for me.
I am a true Belizean. Belize my home, my native. I want you people to understand. Bande, yo, bande. Tell them that we ballin'. I want you people to understand. Tell them that we ballin'. I am proud to be a Belizean. Tell them that we ballin'. Yo bande, yo bande. Tell them that we ballin'. Yo bande, yo bande. I am a true Belizean. Tell them that we ballin'. Belize my home.
And we are back again with the last episode, the last segment of Navel String Connection today. I am Bilal Morris, live from our studio here in Los Angeles, along with ARIA LIGHTFOOT, live out of Florida. And this is the Belizean show in the Belizean diaspora, Navel String Connection, a XTV production. Our producer is Nur Muhammad, the man behind the controls. We want to always thank him, is Harlan. And we want to thank our sister, Princess Elogia, for coming on today from the Central American African Organization. And we want to thank our sister for coming on and having this conversation with us. And I want to, again, take you back to our sister, ARIA LIGHTFOOT here, and to take this second segment into this interesting conversation with our sister.
So thank you, Princess, to be on this show and, you know, enlightening us on some of the work that you're doing, and it's important work. You were mentioning the Prime Minister of St. Vincent being a very conscious Prime Minister, maybe even beyond his time. One of the things that you did mention that really sticks to me is that Belize did not make a presentation at the UN. I don't even know how the invites happen. It might have, you know, fell through the cracks but it's interesting in Belize that we do have an indigenous desk, but I'm not sure indigenous equals Black indigenous, or even the Creoles that are in Belize also, because arguably they are indigenous to Belize. So with that being said, my concern is that, like a country like Belize, specifically since we're talking about Belize, when it comes to murder that we see, it's a lot of young Black men. We see almost weekly, in fact, it must be weekly now, who are being victims or perpetrators of violent crime, murder. When we see poverty in Belize and you go through the different areas, you see it's Black people who are victims or people in dire poverty. When you see fights happening, social media fights, it goes right back to the Black communities in Belize. It's almost treated, like Bilal said, it's almost treated like a subgroup of people, because there have been the Black elites or the Black middle class that have segregated themselves from that reality. And so what we find is these advocacy groups that are supposedly representing Black communities, they do it from a middle class, artistic type perspective without addressing the realities of Black people. That's my observation. If somebody wanted to get involved and somebody really wanted to become a partner with you, or be a representative in Belize, or an advocate, or to even find out how to attend these types of events, could you just lead us to how somebody could get involved, and how people can become advocates for their communities?
Absolutely. So the easiest thing for me is just you can email me. So my email address is pr@mannequinsinmotion.com. And so we can, I guess, plug that somewhere later for them to be able to see it. And that's something that I can help to support. we can have a conversation about who they are, what they're trying to do, and get them to try to plug them in where they need to be.
Also, could you tell us, moving just a little bit forward, in your bio, you also mentioned your involvement in domestic violence, and you find communities that deal with a lot of trauma, and that is regardless of race. You find in communities with a lot of trauma, domestic violence tend to be higher, but it still exists in every sector of our society, regardless of income. It's a very serious issue, because a lot of times women, predominantly, not all the time, are victims. And many times women are not in the economic bracket where they can remove themselves and their families from some dangerous situations. So tell us a little bit about the work that you do in this arena.
So first and foremost, I'm a survivor myself. A part of my story is having to start off from scratch with two children. And so it's I've had to relocate more than once in order to protect myself and my kids. And so so when I finally got to a point where I was able to get situated, COVID hit. COVID hit, and we were put into isolation for a while. And I used that time to get trained on how to do life coaching. And so I'm a certified life coach, and I work with individuals who find themselves struggling in certain areas in order to be able to kind of cross them over into to coming out of their shadows and working through some of those issues. So I'm not a therapist, but I'm able to help them identify their barriers and kind of point them in the direction of how they can support themselves. And
what are some of the tips that you would normally, like generally, it doesn't have to be specific, but what are some of the ways that women and men, if they find themselves in a situation where they feel they're in danger, and especially with their children, what are some of the ways or tips that you could give them where they can try to figure a way out of that?
So for anyone who's listening to this, based on where you are, you have to figure out how much you can say, who you can say it to, when silence is necessary, because everyone is not going to be an ally to you. Sometimes you're going to have to, people who you call your friends, sometimes you can't even talk to them about it because they can very well be the one to actually pull you back into that dangerous place, because they might not believe that it's even possible for someone else to treat you that way. And so it's really being strategic about your movements. If you trust any authority figure outside of your immediate circle, you probably want to check there first, in order to be able to see if there are any resources in your area that can support you. If there's someone who for a fact can help to shelter you for a while, in order for you to at least be in the space of thinking straight. Sometimes that's all you need in order for your instincts to be able to actually give you some of the answers on what to do. And that's one of the things that happened with me when I ended up seeking guidance from a domestic violence organization. They said one of the things that actually helped me to push through it was my own natural instincts that was coming through and helping to guide me on actually what to do. So I hope that helps. But you have to be in the space of being able to think clearly enough for that to come through. So I hope that helps.
In our
In
country,
terms of dealing with those who you administer to in this whole area of domestic violence, I just wanted to add as a question: do you bring now? You have been someone who have experienced that malady. Now you come in as a counselor, a life coach. Do you bring your entire African-centeredness in terms of your spirituality? How do you bring that into now being someone who ease the pains of a survivor, of a victim of this? How do you embrace it, especially Black women who are predominantly victims of this? Do you incorporate what you have apart from your experience of being someone, but also your whole African-centered consciousness? How do you bring that into your life coaching?
Okay, so I naturally attract individuals who can connect with me on a spiritual level. And so I use that to my advantage. And so sometimes what ends up happening is that, let's say, for example, someone comes to me for spiritual guidance, it ends up turning into a life coaching session. And usually these individuals are survivors or victims, and so it's almost like the way that the spirit works is bringing forth the individuals who actually need the support that I'm tooled to be able to, to guide them with or to support them with.
You use a lot of your Garifuna, being that you come as your mother as a very deep Garifuna-centered Black woman. Who have the practice of the Garifuna culture, the spirituality, the African religion of the Garifuna? Have you educated yourself in that, and being that you were born outside of the Garifuna communities of Central America, but it appears to me that you have embraced that, the entire spirituality and the practices of the Garifuna. It appears to me that you have embraced that deeply just by listening to your conversations and in terms of how you have brought that into your African spirituality. Do you use that also?
I do use it. There has been a conflict in a way because I'm still sorting out, I guess, who to listen to. Which do I lean more on the African side? Do I lean more into the Garifuna side? Because there's like a war between the two, trying to figure out, can they really operate as one?
Interesting.
Because I am an active channel, so the ancestors, they do speak through me. I go into trance modes. I can be in trance for 4 hours plus sometimes. and it does weigh on me. It's been about 5 years since I started going down this path. And so to answer your question, I have done my best to embrace what I can with what I have, what I've been given, because sometimes, for example, I can pick up a book, and based on the energy of or what's going on with me energetically or spiritually, I can pick up a book that I want to read, and I have to put it down because my energy just won't allow me to sit through it long enough to even pick up the information. I try to reach out to individuals to get support, and then I realize, well, if you're only Garifuna, then you probably can't really understand and figure out what's going on with me. If you're only American, then you can't figure out what's going on with me. So it's kind of been an isolated and interesting road for me. Frustrating at times, and then liberating in others. So.
One of the, you mentioned that people can reach out to you by email or to kind of join on for some of the advocacy. Does that also extend to life coaching? If somebody wanted life coaching skills to reach out to you on issues of domestic violence. And the reason I say it is because I don't know what the resources are to help Belizeans who suffer domestic violence. Many times we do have a house of hope, I believe, that will remove women from dangerous situations, but it's really a very high incidence because we still have sometimes these primitive thinking that women should, know their place, and then a lot of times that comes with treating women almost like their children in itself of the domestic violence. I've heard so many cases of even family members that are the women family members given permission to beat their daughters or to control, so we're still dealing in a country like Belize with a lot of very old school type thinking, and I'm not saying old school as old school was right, but it was prevalent in Belize. Just recently, I'm not sure you're aware, but we had the case of Nora Parham, who ended up killing her husband for domestic violence back in the 1960s, and the state executed her, even though there was a very long history of domestic violence, and her husband was a police officer. The state just last year, is it posthumously pardoned her? And this is because she was a mother with 5 children, I believe, and she was pregnant at the time when all this was going on. So even from the 1960s to today, we still have instances of women in Belize, even prominent women that are murdered by their spouses. Just last year, we had the city manager in Belize, very prominent young lady, very intelligent, promising. So these instances do happen. And a lot of times, because the way our society is a very small society and people are always afraid somebody is going to gossip about them, a lot of times they don't reach out to resources. And sometimes the suggestion is they reach out to somebody at the international level where they're not in that fear that, you know, and I think the fear is irrational, but still people do treasure their privacy. Is there some way people can also reach out to you, for example, for advice on how to address these types of issues?
Absolutely. And I want to be able to address it right here. If we do not use our voices in this way, then it makes it harder for people who need the help to receive it. One of the things that I strongly encourage is the media to start getting together. I don't know if there's a media council, a broadcasting council. The more that the information is broadcasted, the stronger the voice of the individuals become. We're needing more men, boys, to be able to get information on how to control their emotions. There needs to be dating advice. More people need to be aware of how to build healthy relationships. You know, more education needs to be had. People need to understand about family dynamics. Are you a family member who has a voice within your family? You know, are you able to go to your mom? Are you able to go to your father to be able to say something? You know, because sometimes the parent could be the abuser as well, or can help to support the abuse by way of them not doing anything if you say that you're needing help. And so it's so just more education, but not only for women, it needs to be for men as well. There needs to be a healthy balance. We've gotten away from traditional and community where it takes a village to raise a child. And it's like that village, it was what we needed in order to be able to hold certain people accountable that were doing things that were wrong. All eyes on, you know, a predator or, you know, or an abuser. People need to be ridiculed. They need to be addressed. And now we've gotten too comfortable with every man for themselves, survival of the fittest. You know, you're grown now, so you got it, you know, go ahead and be that adult. But everyone at the end, everyone at the end of the day still needs that support, whether you're a child or the eldest person in the room. You know, everyone needs help right now. And so so education is key to be able to get that information out to across the board.
You talk about the males, and that's a very important point when you're dealing with domestic violence, particularly amongst people of African descent or in the African diaspora itself. And one of the things that I have seen a lot of people like you, particularly males, male life coaches and psychiatrists, is this rite to passage for young boys. This boys to men concept. And you see successes, and there are studies that have shown that those the application of proper rites of passage, particularly in the African community, the African diaspora, Black people, if you may, that these young men, as ARIA is saying, killing one another, committing domestic violence against their women, is because of the fact that they never had a proper African rites of passage, that journey from boy to men, in terms of how do you treat your women, and it starts there. And the studies have shown that a large amount of these young Black men or African from the African diaspora the reason why they have committed domestic violence is because they never had proper rites of passage. They were raised up in dysfunctional family structures. Talk about that, if you may, as we wrap up this show.
No, it's true. And when you said what you just did, all that came to mind for me was that the first person that, or the first person that a young boy connects with is his mother. And if we are not nurturing our daughters, if we're not then we cannot support them in becoming nurturing mothers to the next generation of boys who are being birthed by them. I mean, just imagine having a young lady who is unprotected and she's angry all the time, and she's battling all of these different things within herself, and then she ends up in a relationship with someone who doesn't have a good relationship with his mom, and then they end up having a child. I mean, just imagine what, generation after generation, what is really happening within our community. So, I mean, it really starts there, the relationship and bond between a mother and her child, and fathers and their daughters. Are they, and yeah, the relationship between a mother and her son, fathers and their daughters, and vice versa, whatever that looks like for them. Is it protective? Is it safe? Is it nurturing? Is it caring? Is it supportive? Is it protected? What are they being taught, in their safe space? What's supposed to be a safe space for them? So
No, I think that's a very important point. I always remember going to this mass in Toronto when I was there with my cousin, and it was the pastor's message that says every household brings balance. The mother brings nurturing to the child, and the father teaches the child confidence and to take risk. And he gave a scenario as something as simple as a father that's playing with a child is going to roughhouse with that child, throw them up in the air, while the mother is there always reminding him to be careful, and then the child in that play moment learns balance. They learn that yes, I could have fun, but yet there is a limit to it because there's a danger that potentially exists. And I am of the belief that women do get their self-esteem from their dads. Um, if you have a nurturing father, a father around that's basically telling you that you're this type of person and it's in a positive way, it's more difficult for a woman to stay with somebody else abusing them because they're used to a positive father and they will probably leave it. I think the situation with colonialism and slavery, the institution went on for so long. I mean, 400 years. When you think about 400 years and you think that there's about maybe three generation per 100 years, and you multiply, that's 12 generations of or more of being taught that these things of abuse and trauma is normal. So once we became independent, and a lot of these colonial countries, there has been no policy to arrest the way that these groups have come about and how they socialize and how they function. And yes, within the colonies, those who had proximity to the colonial master were able to um, elevate themselves. But then within the colonial structure, there were people who never had that level of proximity. And now it's changing into politics, but it's just a perpetuation of a continuation of colonialism. That's my opinion. And so now we're in a society where in 2025, you still have, with all the resources and information that's out there, and with all the online things where people could actually go seek it out sometimes, just because of 12 generations of indoctrination, there's a sector of our society that has normalized trauma, that has normalized cruelty, that doesn't have a self-esteem, where they don't see another black man as their brother. They see that person as a threat. The media basically talks about people as if they're animals. They show dead bodies on the TV as if these people are not humans. And so right now, I think, and I like the fact that you came on here as a young person, because I think that there's a consciousness that has to happen. If it doesn't happen, black people in Belize will start seeing their realities become that of Argentina, that completely wiped out the black population through different methods. That's my opinion. The stereotypes around black people are negative, and it's perpetuated a lot by black people themselves. The violence against the black people in Belize are perpetuated by the black people themselves. The way we treat our leaders is that we are highly critical of our black leaders, and we allow our non-black leaders to get a pass for the same types of behaviors. And that to me boils down to our self-esteem as a community. And this is why I call on these organizations, Creole and Garifuna, to move away from the pageantries and the things that I find insignificant, and move towards the things that are powerful and that are actually impactful to the black populations of Belize. It has to be addressed. We have to address the violence. We cannot be a conscious, religious, Christian, indigenous, whatever descriptor that you want to use, that believe in human rights, they believe in the spirituality of human beings, if we're all okay to sit back and watch a group of people continue to disseminate their culture, their lives, their opportunities. And I think we are at that point now where we need more consciousness in our society.
I agree. And what's sitting on my heart is a call to action for the members of the media to be able to sit with us. And I'm saying us because I can see how passionate you all are. And I'm very, very grateful for the opportunity to be invited on such short notice. That right there lets me know that the spirit of healing is knocking at the door, because I have tried to have this conversation for a while, and it's sad to say that that out loud, that I've been reaching out to have this type of conversation for our people. And so this right here, I am saying that I would like for us to be able to have our own conference that addresses the media, so that we can start giving the people what they need to help them heal. Because like you said, what they're seeing on TV, what they're reading on social media and through the media, there's a way to redirect it, to change. There's a way to change that. But we have to start with the people who have control over delivering the message to the people. We have to get to them first, because we have to look at them as being doctors in an operating room. And if they are unhealed, they cannot help to heal those who need the help. So this is an emergency call to action for the media, because at the end of the day, it's the media that's helping to feed the people what they are seeing. The other thing is that everything that that the Belizeans have access to, whether it's on the internet, whether it's on social media, I want you to hear me very loud and clear. Everything that you see on TV or in the media is not true. Okay? And it's not your experience. And it's not your job to be trying to copy or to try to act on something that you don't understand. There is a war against us, and it's I've seen it over time where I'm like, no, some of why people want to travel into Garifuna territories is for the essence of the people, the natural way that we are, or coming to Belize for the natural essence of it. Like even now, I can't go to Belize and take my shoes off anymore. The last time that I went to Belize, I could not remove my shoes and walk the street. It's not what I experienced when I was a child. So I started to question, why did it change? I had to ask myself, what happened? And of course, I end up feeling like it has something to do with what people are seeing someone else have. And they don't even realize that that's not what people want. Like in the States, when we see construction all the time, we're like, no, like we need nature. We need the animals to be able to have their land to roam. We need, more farming spaces. We need all of that. But when there's constant construction it takes away from the essence of the Mother Earth, the remedy of the pure essence that we should be receiving from her.
Well, thank you so much. We're actually out of time now. It was a great discussion. I would implore you to reach out to Yaya Marin, who is also on Creme Radio. She's an advocate for the African Belizean community, and she works closely with the African diaspora also. She always is a great resource for information. She does a lot of research, and she's been doing a lot of positive media. I mean, it's small, but she does positive media to highlight Black families in a positive way to counteract the constant negative images that we're seeing of young Black men. And I think that's very important, that this discussion happened, the advocacy has to pick up. There is a call of action that's absolutely needed. So thank you for taking your time out. I'd like to thank Harlan, who is our technician on the background, and also Nuri Mohammed, who is one of the producers, and of course XTV, that gives the diaspora, the Belize diaspora, a space that no other network really does, because the XTV sees the importance of keeping Belizean community engaged in these discussions, which I think is extremely important. So with that says, that I would like to say thank you and good night, and I'll leave it for Bilal to end it off.
I want to say thank you too for coming on and such a short notice. You accepted right away, and this conversation happened. The beauty of it happened, and we hope that healing can continue from that, those who were listening and those across the Belizean diaspora who had listened to the show, and the Belizeans at home who enjoyed our show today and hear this very, very, very important conversation, that we are empowered, and that our sister Princess Eulogia had brought us some healing this evening. And again, we want to say thank you again for coming on. And this is an XTV production. I'm Bilal Morris. We want to say to all of you and the listeners out there, thank you for watching and listening. Good night.
Good night.
I want you people to understand. I am proud to be a Belizean. Your bande, your bande. Your bande, your bande. I am a true